A warm welcome to this week's Breed and Grow Financial Talk Point. Your host as always, Liability, and with me I have Mr. Francis Lugolobi Kabinuli, the Chief Finance Officer, Breed and Grow Business Home, and he's a finance expert. We've had a very great time always with Mr. Lugolobi discussing various aspects to do with finance and personal achievement. Last week was so interesting. We introduced the topic of personal financial management, and there was so much to share. Find it if you missed it. We have the link below, and you can find it on our YouTube channel where it was uploaded last week. Today we're talking interests, personal interests. When I told Francis that we shall be talking personal interests today, he asked me a very big question of why personal interests, as in why do you think that's what we should be talking about this week? And I told him that something that I want to share with you, that while I was compiling my annual report for the performance of this year at Breed and Grow, I landed on some very stunning or astonishing statistics. I tried to look across all the clientele we've had across the year and trying to establish trends that could connect the clients, the various clients we had, with the various problems they came with and the solutions, therefore, that we could come up, or we were able to come up with for the various situations. And something interesting caught my eye. This is what I found out, that 87% of all our clientele this year had no clearly defined interests. 9% had a vague idea of what their interests were. Only 4% had a close to clear definition of what their interests were, though these were also lacking in some other aspects of their life. For example, in understanding the financial implication of their interests in their day-to-day life and decisions. The other thing that I discovered that was quite interesting was that there was a very high correlation coefficient between the clarity of one's interests and the quality of their financial well-being. Very interesting. There was a very high correlation coefficient, a very close relationship between one's clarity of interests and their personal financial well-being. And this is going to push us to our very first question. Don't go away, we're coming back after this short break. Welcome back to the Breed and Grow Financial Talk Point with me, Mr. Francis Lugolobi Kabinuli, discussing personal interests. Mr. Lugolobi, what explains, as we've seen in the statistics given earlier, what do you think explains, or what do you know to explain the high correlation coefficient between one's clarity of interests, their personal interests, and the quality of their financial well-being and achievement?
Yeah. The interests an individual has have a lot of bearing on their financial growth or well-being. Not only the particular individual, but even the people attached to that individual, or the people he lives with, or the people who benefit from his well-being. So, if an individual has very clear, well-defined interests, this individual is bound to achieve more financially than an individual who doesn't have clear or well-defined interests. And this is how. Every individual has abilities, has skills, and has different experiences, which put together, they can enhance or they can grow, and they can help him achieve those interests.
They are dynamite in potential.
In potential. So if an individual, if for example I myself I have different abilities, skills, and experiences. And if I had the wrong interests, or if I didn't have very clear interests, they're not specific enough, they are vague, they're not well defined, then I may end up attaching all my energies, all my skills,
all over the place,
all my motivation on the vague, undefined interest. And if I don't pull together my skills and my experiences, I will end up spreading my energy thin. And when I spread them thin, many times I won't achieve anything, or I'll achieve a very tiny fraction of what I would have achieved. I may achieve 20% of what I would have achieved, maybe if I had targeted to the right interest. I may achieve 90%, but in this case I may achieve maybe 20% because of the vagueness of my interest. So the clarity and the well definition of interest,
proper definition of
interest has a long way, has a clear mandate and push in directing any individual in achieving financial freedom, financial independence, and financial well-being.
Wow, wow, wow. Mr. Lugolobi tells us that actually how clear your interests are defined to you as a person is very important in determining where and how much of your abilities you focus to your financial achievement and attainment. Very interesting. While Mr. Lugobi, while you were telling us about the clarity of the interest, you mentioned another very important word. Quite maybe 3 times or 2 times you mentioned the word right. So that means we have two items at play here. We have clear and we have right. You seem to suggest that for one to be able to use their abilities in the best, most efficient way, I want to borrow the word efficient, to use the abilities in the most efficient way towards financial attainment, one must have clear interest. But even then, these interests must be the right ones. What is the right interest?
A right interest is defined by different circumstances.
Okay.
Yeah. It may be defined by geography.
Okay.
To begin with, you may have a clear, well-defined interest, and you have the skills and abilities to fit in that interest. But when you're in the wrong geography, so it will be a clear, well-defined interest, but for the wrong geography. So it will be a wrong interest.
Wrong interest.
Interest because you're in the wrong geography. For example, there are certain interests which are not well suited for Africa, where if you wanted to pursue those interests, you're better off in another geography.
Going to the moon, going to Mars.
Going to the moon.
Yeah.
Uganda doesn't have a program for going to the moon.
At least not anytime soon.
Yeah. If I had that interest, and I am in Uganda, and I have an ability of relocating the country where I can express that interest very well, then I may end up having a very clear, well-defined interest, but without being able to fulfill that interest.
In the end, you could waste a lot of resources in trying to know about how to go to the moon. But if you don't have the ability to move and relocate out of certain geographies, you could be wasting the resources.
Yes.
Wow, interesting. So one of the most important things in defining a right interest is the geography.
Geography is very important.
1, 2.
The other area which helps you in defining right interest is your skills and abilities.
Okay.
Now, many individuals, actually, this is where many of us fall. Many of us have interests, have desires and ambitions, have where we want to go. But these interests are not achievable with our skill sets, with our ability sets. We are different people. And many of us have heroes. We have people we look up to. And we want to follow their path all through. And we forget that these guys have different skill sets, different abilities. So many times you want to become. Let me give an example of myself. When I was growing up, I had an interest in becoming a lawyer, basically, in my ordinary level. And I discovered, it helped me that I discovered that my skill sets, my abilities as an individual, I'm not very argumentative. Lawyers have to be very argumentative. I had the other skills of the humanity skills, but I lacked that argumentative bit. I was not a very good debater.
To go for it until you take it down.
Yeah, I was not a very good debater. I was good at communication, but not debating and not arguing, which is a very important skill in being a lawyer. So if I had gone for that interest because I loved the law profession, if I had pursued that interest, it would have been a wrong interest because I didn't have the skill sets.
Or it could have also been a more costly one.
Definitely, yeah.
Because you have to invest a lot of resources in trying to adjust to that new setting of being argumentative.
And sometimes it's not very. There are certain skills and abilities which are not learned, which are easier nurtured, and even when you learn them, you may come off as, you won't come off well. Yeah, you won't come off well because you've just learned them. Like someone who is a natural thing.
It takes time.
Yeah, it will take time. So it would have been a wrong
to burn resources along the way.
So when I made when I discovered that, I redirected, I reshaped my interest to things which could fit within my skill set and abilities.
With efficiency.
With efficiency, yeah.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Mr. Lugolobi, two things you raised, very important points about establishing the right interests. One is geography, two is one skill set and abilities. And these help us come up with the right interests. What is the role? What role could knowledge play in the establishment of interests?
Knowledge is very important in establishing interest. Because without knowledge, and even the knowledge I'll qualify it, without the right knowledge, because everyone has knowledge, but everyone has knowledge, but not everyone has the right. Actually, very few people have the right knowledge. There are different types of knowledge, and we don't need all the knowledge in the same magnitude in helping us coming out with clear and specific and right interests. For example, we have let me just mention these different types of knowledge. We have scientific knowledge in all its spread. We have sociological or humanities knowledge in all its spread. Then we have financial knowledge in all its spread. Now, the first two sets of knowledge, they can inform us, the scientific knowledge and sociological knowledge, they can inform us on how our body works, how we should be healthy, how machines we operate with work. Then the humanities will help us how to interact with individuals, how to interact with our families, friends, and people at the workplace and all that. But the financial knowledge helps us to identify how we can use the other different types of knowledge, the resources, the assets, the liabilities, and how we can work with them to achieve our development financially, which development is going to help our well-being, which development is going to help achieve our interests, and which development is going to help us actually even in the first instance shape those interests. Because when you don't have that knowledge, if you don't have the right financial knowledge, you won't be able to define what even right interests are. Like from the previous case we looked at, the first example of someone trying to have interests which are not in their abode, in their geographical abode. This individual is going to, if this individual had the right knowledge that it's very expensive to pursue an interest which is not present in their geography, that expensive bit is the financial knowledge. I have a friend who had a daughter, and this daughter wanted to become an aero engineer, and the only way this daughter would become an aero engineer is to have training from North America or Europe. She had to go to Canada, but this gentleman used loads of resources. Lots of resources. He almost sold his home. He sold lots of his other properties at the detriment of even some of his
the siblings,
some of the siblings of that daughter. And if this person had a financial knowledge, the cost of achieving a certain interest would also help him shape that interest. Many times you have interest, and if you have financial knowledge, you look at the different interests you have, and you say, okay, I'll pursue interest A because it's most cost effective for me to achieve. I'll use less money to achieve interest A, yet interest A would give me almost the same return as interest B, which is very, very expensive to achieve. Yeah. So if you have that financial knowledge of comparing the cost of one interest to another and the benefit of one interest to another, so you'll have the cost benefit analysis, which analysis is only found in the financial knowledge. So financial knowledge helps us shaping our interests, and not only shaping our interests, in determining which interest you're going to go for. Sometimes we put certain interests in a dustbin because they're financially not viable. Some people even have interests which require a lot of energy, but when you put that interest on the weighing scale, it has very low returns or no returns at all. I've seen people who are very good at who have interests in music, but when you look at their abilities in music, for example, you look at where they come from, their background, and the resources they need to put in for them to have a good music career, which is profitable, it's too much, and they won't make it. They won't make it actually. They may have zero returns. Yet, if they develop other interests which are financially viable, they'll have very good returns. Actually, you've seen even musicians in Uganda here. Actually, I've seen so many musicians in Uganda. They've tried a music career, and when they lack knowledge, at the point when they got enough financial knowledge, they reshape their interests, and now they're running businesses,
and they're doing so well elsewhere.
They're so profitable. Yet the music career, however much you are talented in music, didn't kick off.
Didn't kick off. Yeah.
So that's the importance of financial knowledge in shaping and determining interests.
Talking knowledge intrigues one to think about sources of the knowledge.
You're right.
You talked what we called scientific knowledge. You talked of the social, also humanity knowledge, and then you talked about the financial knowledge or the financial knowledge. Among these three, my experience has showed that financial knowledge is the most scarce.
Very.
I think our societies, our cultures and systems have found a way of informing us so much about the first two. The scientific knowledge about our health, about machines and how they operate. It's all over the place. Everyone almost knows how. It's easy. You go to YouTube and know how a car works and everything and everything and everything. Then when it comes to the humanities knowledge, culture has done that. Religion has done that. How to relate with each other, how to teach each other well, how to rub shoulders, how to do everything. There's very little. There are very few places I personally can point at where one can go and access the knowledge. So I want us to talk sources of knowledge. But in talking of the sources, one of the things that one should look at while considering the source, since we're talking right, would be quality.
Quality
of the source.
Of the source.
Because it determines the quality of the knowledge.
You're right.
What are some of the pointers one should understand when trying to access the right quality source for knowledge?
The right quality source of financial knowledge, in this case, should be, first of all, someone who is qualified in that field. Someone who is, better still, a professional in the financial field. Why? Because when I'm looking for health knowledge, I go to a doctor. I'm respectful enough of that kind of knowledge that I go to a doctor or a pharmacist. When I'm looking for mechanical knowledge, I go to a
mechanical engineer.
When I look for civil mechanical knowledge, I go to a civil engineer. But funny enough, in our society, people tend to look for financial knowledge from experts in other fields. You get me? So to begin with, the source of financial knowledge should be from an expert in the financial field.
You're talking skills, expertise, and experience.
The expert must have the expertise in finances and in financial resources, and that expert should have the qualifications. That expert should have proven over time experience in financial principles and their application. It's very hard to get knowledge from someone who has financial knowledge, but this person has been around for is experienced with 10 years of experience under their sleeve. But this gentleman or lady has never tried any financial venture, any proven financial venture. Let it fail or succeed. You should have a chain of failures, for example, because we learn more from failures than even successes. You should have a chain of failures, then you should have the success stories, which have proven your principles. Because it's these principles, financial principles, which you are carrying,
they're passing on.
You're passing, whose knowledge you are passing on
to other people.
Yeah. So someone should have that record, and not only that record, but someone should have a record of having passed on knowledge to other individuals, and this knowledge should have worked with some of them at least, because not everyone,
majority of them,
not everyone takes on knowledge. Even if you pass on the knowledge, it's their prerogative to take it on and to use it. But at least some individuals should have taken on that knowledge and principles and theories and put them in practice, and they should have worked. So you should look at that, and even that source, that source should be comparatively superior or equal to other similar sources of similar knowledge. Yes. Now, for example, if I'm coming to you to get me financial knowledge, I want to make a business decision or financial decision as an individual. I want maybe to relocate from work
to employment, from employment maybe to self-employment.
Or I want to invest in shares to get all my capital invested in shares.
We need to go for a loan.
When I come to you and I ask you, Mr. Mayengo, how can I be helped to make these 2 decisions or 3 decisions? Getting a loan, buying shares, or even moving from employment to self-employment. The information I get from you should be comparatively similar to other success stories in your field. If you give me information which is divergent from 3 others, I should be able to cross-check your information with the others, or even summarized information with other sources, not additional information, but the basic underlying principles. They should be aligning with other financial goals, with other financial minds. You shouldn't give me something which is very divergent. And then the other thing about the source is that source should be timely relevant. I've seen very brilliant sources of financial information, but when they are too outdated, they're a decade old, or they're 2 decades old, you can't afford to...
In practice and experience and
everything. These guys might have been successful that time. They might have used that knowledge successful at that time. They might have passed on that knowledge successful at that time, but things have changed. The world, the financial realm, like other realms, is eclectic. It changes with time. Now, things which worked years back don't work now. For example, nowadays Uganda is talking of IPOs. We didn't have people buying shares 2 decades back. We didn't hear of shares.
An ordinary person talking about buying shares.
Later on, we didn't have a capital market. Actually, I remember the first capital market in Uganda was established when I was in, I think, A-level. I think it was senior 4. I'm now a fully grown adult. So you don't, if someone may give you information about shares, which is 2 or 3 decades old, he may discourage you from investing in shares because the knowledge this person has is 3 decades old. So it's better to get a source which is relevant for our times.
For the time,
And to sum this up, not only our times, but this because knowledge is progressive, and since our interests are futuristic, our knowledge should also touch the future.
Okay.
So the source of knowledge should also be cognizant
of the fact that
there is of the short term, the medium term, and the long term future. This source of knowledge should be able to look beyond the now, and to look at how certain financial, resource, asset, and liability dynamics are going to change in the next 3 years, the next 5 years, the next 10 years. What investments, for example, may be obsolete in 5 years, and this financial source should be able to establish that by looking at the trends, how well certain investments are working, and whether the way they have been trending, do they have a future in 5 years' time? So in that way, they may be profitable now, but if you invest in them, they may take you down the drain.
That reminds me of the Moringa times. Was it called Moringa? Moringa times, the vanilla times. Yes.
Everyone
rushed.
Everyone rushed.
Okay.
And they abandoned coffee and what? Yet coffee has had it's evergreen. It doesn't. But people converted their coffee gardens into vanilla gardens, and vanilla was very short-lived. So it's someone should be able to look. For example, if you want to invest in oil, if you have a good chunk of money, you want to invest in oil, you should look at the future of oil vis-a-vis the green energies which are coming up. The future of oil. For example, looking at even on the national level, is it very wise for Uganda to invest in a fossil fuel which may die down in a decade or two with a lot of money? If you look at it at a macro level. So as an individual, are you well advised to invest in a business which has an attachment to such an industry? You get me? So someone should be able, I'm just giving you an example.
With a kind of Tesla coming up with these electric cars and everything.
In Europe, actually, in Europe and America, people are converting their old oil cars, fuel cars, to fuel and diesel car, petrol and fuel cars to electric cars. They're converting the old cars to...
Yes, I saw that. I saw that somewhere.
So now, if that's the trend, is it wise to invest in this oil industry? So a financial source which does not have a bearing to the future should not be the right.
Is one question. Mr. Lugolobi tells us that all of us have interests. How clear these interests are to us is very important in determining how much of our abilities we can give direction towards our financial achievement and attainment. He also tells us that apart from the interest being clear, it must be the right one. And among the things one should consider in making the right or pointing at the right interest is the geography, one's skill set, and the source of the knowledge that informs the establishment of the interest. And among the things you should consider when looking at the source is experience, skill set, and expertise. You should also consider how long they've been in the field. How relevant are they still in the field? And how futuristic will they keep tight to the situation? Don't go away. We're coming back. It's the Breed and Grow Financial Talk Point. Welcome back to the Breed and Grow Financial Talk Point. Your host as always, Liability Mayengo. With me I have Mr. Francis Ugobi Kabinuli, a finance guru and the Chief Finance Officer, Breed and Grow Business Home. We're talking personal interests and how important it is in your ability to attain financial freedom and financial prosperity. Mr. Lugolobi has told us in the previous segment that knowledge is key in establishing clear and right interests, the lack of which might turn it into a disaster for whoever points their abilities to nowhere. And when you talked about knowledge, Mr. Lugolobi, you pointed it so clearly to us that the source of the knowledge is very important.
Very.
And you also pointed this to us that we have various types of knowledge. You told us we have the scientific knowledge, we have the sociological or humanities knowledge, and then we have the financial knowledge. We also pointed to us that the world has a bigger source for the first two, scientific and sociological knowledge, but we have a very small source of the right financial knowledge.
You're right.
We have you, financial expert. We want to trust you to be a source of financial knowledge today. I have a very interesting question that maybe someone also could be asking themselves. It's no doubt how important one's attainment of financial knowledge is or could be in their attainment of interest. First of all, drawing and shaping, and then later attainment of interests, personal interests. There's no question about the importance of financial knowledge in that.
Not whatsoever.
Question, therefore, how much of this knowledge do I need as an individual to be able to establish, shape, and attain my interests? Do I need to have an MBA? Do I need to fly to the London School of Economics, LSE? Do I need to go and sit at the feet of the financial gurus in India or in the UK? How much of it do I need?
How much you need is quite basic.
Okay.
And little. You don't need an MBA. You don't need to sit at the feet of those gurus you talked about in the financial capital of the world, that's London, or in India. You don't need financial intelligence actually. You need financial literacy at its basic form. You need to understand, first of all, what resources are, because resources are key to achieving interests. Okay. It's these resources you put at play to generate a profit, which profit is going to help you achieve your interests. Yeah. So you need to know what resources are and what they are not. So if, for example, there are people who have a confusion about what resources are, and actually many people limit resources. Many people think resources are only those things to which they can attach a financial value known to them. Yet there are other resources which have value, but which they don't call resources. For example, human beings can be a resource,
very big resource,
and sometimes they can turn out to be a liability.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So there's something you should be able to differentiate between human beings who are a resource and the ones who are going to be a liability to achieving your interests. Okay. Yeah. So when you know that a resource is something of value which can be used to generate more value, there you know you are safe with the resource. So you have to determine a resource at those parameters. At value, present value, and that present value can generate future value.
Before we even go into utilizing of the resource, management of the resource, we first of all must establish what is a resource and what's not a resource.
What's not a resource.
Wow.
Yeah. And certain things, funny enough, as I said, which appear to be resources are actually not resources because they do not generate future value. They take away future value. So if you have an individual, if you have a human resource which is going to take away future value, present and future value, then that's not a resource. It's not a resource. It's something else. It's the opposite of a resource. Yeah. So from after
we call it a distraction.
A distraction. Yeah. After identifying a resource and what it is and what is not, then we move to another level. In those resources, we have we usually call them assets. Then we should know which of these resources are optimally beneficial. Yeah. Because you may have 2 or 3 sets of resources which you cannot use all at the same time. And you have to choose one. Then you should be able to understand that, for example, if I have this amount of money, and from this amount of money I can either buy a piece of land and build a house and rent it out, or I can buy a piece of land and build a house and sell it out, or I can invest in buying merchandise and becoming a distributor of that merchandise. Then you should be able to quickly choose from those 3 options of using your resource. So that knowledge is basic financial literacy. Yeah. By looking at, you should be able to look at the future cash flows of that business in comparison with existing businesses. You look at the history of different businesses in real estate. You look at businesses in distribution, and then you look at the returns. Doing basic research, moving around to people who are into those businesses, asking them questions about their experiences, different people actually, not only one person in one business, but about 3-4 people. And then the knowledge you would have gotten from that is going to, that's the knowledge you need to make a decision on your interests. Then the other financial knowledge you need is you should be able to tell the difference between an asset and a liability. Like I said when I was talking about resources, there are certain, and even in our prior discussions and presentations, we've said that even you can find an accountant or someone who is specialized in finance who is not financially literate, because they will go by the book definition of certain financial matters. For example, in finance and accounting, we are told that having a home is having an asset. But when you analyze it with financial literacy, as I said, an asset should be something which should bring you future benefits. So people present benefits and future benefits. Now, this asset should not be taken away from you. So when you tell someone outrightly that a home is an asset, this home, apart from giving you present benefits and maybe future benefits, is taking away a lot from you. So if someone thinks that a home is an asset and they get all their resources and invest them, the initial resources, and they invest them in a home, this home is not going to bring them profits. This home is something which should be built out of a business, giving you profits, and you're building it.
Should be built from a reserve.
From a reserve, not from, it shouldn't be an initial investment. So by telling someone that a home is an asset, and this person making that initial investment in a home, this person will run out of resources to invest in a productive business or investment, which is going to give them, which is going to help in their interests.
A very young man finishes school or maybe gets a skill somewhere, gets some little money, let's say 150 million Uganda shillings, buys a plot, builds a house. Sunk cost.
Sunk cost, it's a sunk cost because you shouldn't be using your initial capital, initial resources to invest in something which is going to take away money from you. Because a home primarily is going to take away money from you in paying bills, in maintaining the compound, in paying an askari, in repainting, in servicing the home. The bigger it is, the more expensive it's going to take from you. So in that case, it's going to become a liability. Yet if you use that money, your initial resources, to invest in another business
and multiply
it, a distribution business, for example, you invest in it, then you get profits. For example, in every year you get profits of maybe 30-40 million from that business. Then over the years, you use that money.
You build a reserve.
You build a reserve, which you can use to buy a piece of land and then build a home.
What assets, what are liabilities? Very important.
Very important.
Sounds basic, not so common though.
Not so common.
Wow.
People can be able to define them from class, but they won't be able to appreciate them on ground.
I've heard of, I've had and also interacted with so many guys and people who love the life, full pockets. Some go to the extent of full stockings, full wallets, and they walk on the street and let them give you what to drink. Go eat whatever you want. Go do this, go do that. And to that, usually, you guys in the financial world call that cash flows. Is that what you call positive cash flows? Someone looks in the safe, pulls out the safe, and there's money, touches the pockets, there's money, and they're like, yeah, I can spend on anything. Is that a sign of the lack of financial literacy, or a sign of having too much of it?
Yeah, it's everyone should, everyone who is financially literate knows the balance between having much cash and
being profitable.
Profitable, yeah. You should have the right amount of cash. Actually, cash is a representation of value. It's not the actual value.
Okay.
So by keeping all your wealth in cash, you're not making money. You're not making profits, because this cash should be in the actual items of value which should generate profits. So if for example I'm worth 1 billion Uganda shillings,
yes,
and I have all the billion Uganda shillings in cash, or I have 950 million Uganda shillings in cash, and then it's only 50 million which is in actual items of value, then this money which is in cash does not generate profits. It's the other items of value which generate profits, because this money is just a representation of value. And when it's just representing value and it's not in value, then I'm not using it to create more value.
Okay, get you well.
Usually money makes more money when it's invested in items of value. For example, when you buy a plot of land and build apartments, and you either sell them or you rent them out. Or when you invest money in shares, when you buy shares, or when you go into the distribution industry and then you buy items, for example, from Dubai or from Kenya, wherever, and you come and sell them over in Uganda. You get me? So, but then still, you should have a minimum amount of money you should keep yourself with for eventualities, for paying salaries, for running your monthly day-to-day expenses, your recurrent expenditure. So someone who's financially literate should be able to calculate how much money do I need every month to run my monthly expenses. And you should make sure that out of your wealth, you should only keep that amount of money around you. Actually, many times when you keep lots of money around you, you find yourself spending it on things which are not productive because you have it.
Impulsive spending.
Impulsive spending. So you should have only the amount of money which you need to spend. Actually, people in the West have gone a step further. They keep their money mainly on plastic, on debit cards and credit cards. Because many times when you have the debit card and credit card, or especially when you have the debit card, you will only be able to spend the money which is on that card. And even when you have a credit card, you have a limit, credit card limit, which you can spend, whereby you don't keep cash with you, and then that cash is easily spent on the wrong things. So you should be able to know your cash flows, and those cash flows, you should have assets which can be easily translated into cash. Then you should have some other assets where you keep most of your, maybe your money, and that, or your wealth, assets which are not easily transferable into cash, to prevent you from impulsive exchange of, like for example, if you can have a house, land, and all that, those things are hard to translate into cash. Yet, if you had shares in a trending company, those shares are easily sellable to the next person. So you should have the right balance in your cash flows of which items are translatable easily into cash, which we call liquid, and the ones which are illiquid, which you can't easily translate into cash. And then you should have, of course, the real cash, which should be a small portion, and that portion should be the actual amount of money you need in the short term for recurrent expenditure.
Striking a balance between the money that we keep on ourselves and the money we keep in creating value.
The balance between cash and non-cash assets.
All right.
Because cash is an asset.
Cash is an asset.
Is an asset.
Okay.
The balance between cash and non-cash assets.
Basic,
or liquid and illiquid or non-liquid assets.
Basic financial knowledge that each and everyone ought to have, or at least should seek to have.
Yes. And by the way, talking about basic financial knowledge, another basic element in financial knowledge someone needs would be for them to determine their interest is the investments. Investments, the types of investments they can make, and how much they should put in those investments. Because every investment has a minimum capital requirement. So the basic financial literacy informs an individual of the different investments and their minimum capital requirements. Not only the minimum capital requirements, but also the return on investment. Each investment has an industry return on investment, and it has a minimum capital requirement. So someone may come up and the person has, recently someone approached me, they had 1 million shillings, and they wanted to buy shares from MTN. And then I was talking to them about the minimum capital requirements for someone investing in shares.
And the return on investment.
And the return on investment on shares. Then we looked at those two paradigms, and then this person was better advised to invest their money in a high risk but low investment venture, which didn't need which had a high return on investment. Yeah. So every business,
high risk, low investment, high return.
High return.
Oh yeah.
Which required their physical presence, of course, because it was high risk. Instead of putting their money into something which won't give them a good return, they had little capital. So when you have little capital, you're better advised to invest in certain type of investments. When you have medium type of capital, you're advised to invest in another investment. When you have a lot of capital, you can be many times medium to high capital. You can be advised even to diversify your portfolio. So yet when you have very little capital, you may not have room for diversification of investment. So basic financial knowledge avails you with knowledge to be able to make those decisions in investment.
Wow, wow. So interesting. The time is just never enough. Every time we sit with Mr. Francis Lugolobi Kabinduli to discuss finance on the weekly Breed and Grow Financial Talk Point. Mr. Lugolobi tells us that interests are very vital in giving one financial direction, and therefore in helping one or aiding one in attaining financial prosperity or financial wealth. This is just the beginning. We're on a very interesting topic. The whole of this quarter, we're talking and we're discussing personal financial management and growth. Till next time, keep it locked. Breed and Grow Financial Talk Point. See you.